He sold it years ago. And he's a billionaire, he's a pilot, he's a patriot, and he's got a lot of amazing connections in the state and federal government. Told me a lot of amazing things, I don't know, 2.5, 3 months ago when I was up there shooting a movie with him and Mike Norris. And then a lot of what he talked about then later came out on the news. And he's friends with Governor Greg Abbott. As I told you, I talked to Greg Abbott's chief of staff yesterday. I never really even got into what we talked about completely because he didn't say it was off record, but I don't want to give the governor even more trouble. The point is, we know the governor's a patriot and is aware of what's happening with Jade Helm. But Gary Haven will be joining us for an hour and a half in studio with Mike Norris. And let me tell you, I mean, I knew who Mike Norris was because he's made some really big Christian movies that were blockbusters. He's produced hundreds of major TV shows, dozens of shows, but hundreds of episodes. And, of course, he's Chuck Norris's son, and Chuck Norris has been on the show, I don't know, 6, 7 times over the years, and is a listener. We're proud of that fact. In fact, I'm told Chuck listens pretty much every day when he's out driving. But they were laying a lot of really incredible stuff on me about how awake the state of Texas government is, and we're now seeing a lot of that unfold. And they didn't say it was off record, but I just... when I'm told stuff by people that's so amazing, I tend to just not run out and blurt it. But we'll see how much they talk about here on air today. Mainly Gary Haven. We're going to get some Chuck Norris stories that he was telling me and saying I could tell, his firstborn son. And I went and Googled him, and most of them aren't even known. It's just really amazing all the things he was talking about. I mean, it's known that Chuck Norris was really good friends with Steve McQueen and that he learned martial arts from Chuck Norris, that they rode motorcycles together and stuff. I mean, Steve McQueen was a man's man, doing off-road motorcycle racing when he was 40-something years old up against 20-year-olds and winning. But they were telling me, he was telling me all these Steve McQueen stories. I'm a big Steve McQueen fan. And just the celebration of Americana masculinity and patriots. Because I don't get into Hollywood stuff, I could care less. These guys don't live in Hollywood. They live in Texas. And they've gone against the grain of Hollywood. And, when Chuck Norris is a fan, you got something going for you. But it's exciting. We're going to have them in studio today. They're, I'm told, now getting into North Austin right now. They just called us about 10 minutes ago. So that's coming up in the second into the third hour, but I won't make them do 2 hours. That's too grueling unless they want to. We'll do about an hour and a half with Mike Norris and Gary Haven. That said, man, I've got to cover these headlines, which I almost always fail to cover them all. The news, just in 2 of my 8 or 9 stacks today, the stacks are thicker today, there's only 8 or 9 stacks, are just over the top. The good, the bad, the ugly. Great things, bad things, bizarre things, incredible things, very revealing things happening and going on. But I just want to say this, and I said this 10 years ago, and I said it again last year, and I'm saying it now. Liberty is hotter than a pistol. Liberty is hotter than a branding iron. Liberty is hotter than a fiery furnace in the power structure. I'm talking about famous defense company owners that I've talked to, that I've run into. It's like they'll come over and talk to me, when I'm in some law office, and I go look them up, and it's like some person worth $5 billion, $4 billion, and they're just saying, it's all true, blah, 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 I'm running to the Cook Islands, or you go to Hollywood, or you go to New York. I mean, the elite are the ones that are awake, because most of them aren't even part of the takeover. They're just aware of an even more elite group. We're talking a few dozen families that are running the whole show, and they're scared as well. So, well, we're going to talk Jade Helm today, coming up in the second hour, with billionaire CEO, sold off his company Curves when it was peaking a few years ago. Fastest growing chain in world history. Gary Haven will break down the economy. He will break down what's happening in Washington. He'll break down what's happening in Texas politics because he's friends with Governor Greg Abbott and others, and told me, I don't know, 2.5, 3 months ago when I was in North Texas shooting a film with him and Chuck Norris's son, Mike Norris, who's just an amazing individual, They were just telling me all this incredible stuff that obviously they'd been made privy to. People like Chuck Norris have been made privy to, and a lot of it then started coming out in the news. We have since then seen Chuck Norris come out and say he's concerned about Jade Helm, not because he doesn't trust the military, but because he doesn't trust Obama, who admittedly is training the military to confiscate guns and go after veterans of the Tea Party. But then The Guardian spins it deceptively. Texas Ranger Chuck Norris warns of government plot to take over state. No, he didn't. You actually go read his quotes. He talked about how, why aren't they on the border? He talked about what Louis Gohmert's talked about, the fact that the military has been ordered to train to take on gun owners and veterans. And that's what Congressman Louis Gohmert of Texas, who's an Army officer veteran himself, he said, I've never seen training exercises with these type of maps listing states hostile. I have never. And he talked about the training manuals to take on gun owners, veterans, conservatives, libertarians. I mean, doesn't everyone understand that's been in hundreds of newspapers? The media just keeps acting like we're crazy. But there's a real fight over who controls the military and their mission, and we're saying no unconstitutional missions. The military is the main group saying no unconstitutional missions. How do you think we at Infowars.com break probably 60, 70% of the documents, restricted, you name it, that come out of different military bases where they're saying the Founding Fathers are bad and gun owners are bad and Christians are bad and racist, and Daily Caller now had one of those 2 weeks ago as well, and the Defense Department defended it. So our military, Jay Johnson, the head of Homeland Security, is in the news today saying they're not going to criticize ISIS or radical Islam. In fact, they won't call it radical Islam, continuing what the White House said. But they will put out manuals basically calling veterans terrorists and George Washington a bad man. I mean, I have those articles today. We're going to be going over them. So, won't say ISIS is bad, but conservatives, veterans, gun owners, libertarians, Christians, pro-lifers, I mean, they're auditing libertarian think tanks. They're harassing them. And it's all over the news that all Hades is basically breaking loose. Now, there is so much to get to today. Let me just do this. Separately, Mike Norris was laying on me at dinner. It was actually lunch. The most amazing Chuck Norris stories that no one's ever heard. This is his son, who he works with in filmmaking and TV, and who produces his own hit films and TV shows. Lives in Dallas, outside Dallas, my hometown. I mean, amazing stuff. And we're not about gossip or, entertainment news, but we are about celebrating patriots, people that are under attack. And definitely Chuck Norris is the real deal. Not just a character, tough guy in a lot of really, enjoyable 70s and 80s and 90s movies and TV shows into the 2000s, but the fact that he was the world champion in Taekwondo and some of the other issues. One time I was talking to Joe Rogan, who was the national champion in his weight for Taekwondo, but Chuck Norris was the global champion, and he, of course, the host of the UFC. And I said, would Chuck Norris do good in UFC today? If he was 25, he said, absolutely, he'd probably win. And he goes, because the same stuff he had then is how he would end up winning today. And so that's what Joe Rogan, the top commentator on jiu-jitsu, martial arts, commentary, that's what he had to say about Chuck Norris. So there's a lot of jokes out there, the whole Chuck Norris meme, and Chuck Norris, is a listener of the broadcast. He's been on many times. He's received a lot of criticism for coming on the broadcast because they have to act like what I'm saying here is so dirty and so bad. They had the Fox's 5 attack, saying we're crazy. They were even willing to go after Ted Cruz, saying, why is he listening to Alex Jones? Why is the governor listening? Why is Chuck Norris listening? They're not listening to me. I mean, they are listening. But anyone can go to Forbes or AP or the Army War College and read where the new main enemy is the Patriots. We're forcing a national debate about that. Just like we did about NSA warrantless spying 20 years ago. I mean, we had the former director of the technical division, that's like number 3 position, number 4 position, the equivalent of a 2-star general, William Binney, in studio here. Do you understand that? We had James Bamford, the former main producer of Nightline, on the broadcast 18 years ago and 15 years ago, laying out everything that Snowden came out with. He just gave the latest names and the latest programs, but it's all basically the same thing. We don't make stuff up. When we're speculating about the nature of the universe or matter, we will say we're speculating. But 95% of the time, we're not speculating, and that's what upsets the dinosaur media so much, is we're covering legitimate news and information here that people can go look up for themselves. That's why Ted Cruz said he was concerned because we can't trust the federal government. Not that Jade Helm's an imminent takeover, but that the de-evolution of the military into a domestic tyranny is a fact. And they think you're too stupid to go research that and find out. Let me give you the other headlines before I drill into all this, because there is just so much here. TPP trade deal, Congress giving away its authority. TPP means Congress surrendering its global authority to busybodies. Republicans move to rescue Obama trade that takes over the internet, free speech, you name it. Here's another headline. Rand Paul plans to filibuster Patriot Act. Super news. Whistleblowers soar to record levels under Obama, but they're still being persecuted at record numbers. But it's not intimidating them. So see, good people in the government. Almost half of U.S. states are officially broke. We're going to break that down. Zero Hedge has all the graphs on Infowars.com. Election Commission Dems want to regulate conservative internet super PACs, and they've made the announcements. Just as other commissioners have warned the public, they're coming for Drudge. Super exciting news, positive news. Mexico, it's also sad news, cancels infant vaccines nationwide after 2 die. 29 others suffering debilitating adverse reactions, including their brains swelling up, stop breathing, an autoimmune response. Mexican doctors say they're having an autoimmune response to the administration of the tuberculosis and hepatitis B vaccines. These are the ones they give newborn preemies, and when they're ordered to do it at the hospitals, we had a whistleblower on in a big ward in like Chicago, in one area, they'll give them all the shots because it'll be an order from the bioethics board. And they'll say, all right, we got about 65 preemies in there. We've been ordered, get the emergency beds ready, get the innovation ready. We're going to save their lives. They go and give them the shots, and upwards of 10% stop breathing and flatline. They defibrillate. They snake tubes down their lungs. I mean, and we've had the whistleblowers on. So they follow orders and then save their lives. The babies die and have to be resuscitated. The babies flatline. Who says human sacrifice doesn't go on anymore? Oh, I guess they're not babies, they're preemies, so it's just like other babies that get aborted, right? So we're going to be breaking that down. Washington State passes law requiring warrants for Stingray use. It was Infowars.com a year ago with Mikhail Phelan when he still lived in Washington State. He was such a good reporter, we moved him here. Got the insides of the city documents that were secret, that they were illegally spying on everyone and admitting it was illegal. And then that blew the whole nationwide program sky bloody high. You think we're an enemy of the globalists? Pray for us, folks. We're going in hard. We are engaging. State to retain custody of free-range children, Infowars.com. There's a local newscast we have posted. Authorities, not servants, to continue investigation of off-the-grid family who were homeschooling. Unrest, urban unrest, expert, U.S. on the cusp of cycle of riots. More domestic disorder coming in the aftermath of Ferguson and Baltimore. Urban unrest expert Dr. Max Herman says the United States is on the cusp of a wave of domestic disorder that the country will have not seen. And the country will see race riots. Professor of sociology at New Jersey University told New Republic's Joel Gilliff on the economic downturn. Yeah, it's economic.